Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Greetings and good morning to the folks from the US and the East of us, and to the Asians and the folks from the Middle East. Good evening and thank you. So, criteria to select a cloud storage and file sharing service. Before we go on, a couple of hygiene topics. Obviously, if there's a fire, save yourself. As I always say, you can come back. You can, since you're registered, this webinar is live. It's recorded. So save yourself. Do switch off your mobile or, mute your mobile. If you have any questions to myself and my respected panelists, please feel free to ask. If you want to make a comment, feel free to ask. If you include your name, and we'll happily kind of mention you and your name out on the post here. We're going to go straight in. So a couple of things I want to set the scene. You will see over here before I introduce the panelists, the individual who I have here, his company has agreed to. We had to ask them, but they have given us 25% off code to everybody who listens to this webinar for a year for the business plan. So after this webinar, whoever registers and then looks at the webinar will get an email with a special 25% off code from the business plan of the company that we're going to introduce very shortly. And we also will share with you a link to a blog that I have written, which I think I enjoyed writing. I think hopefully will shed some light and give you some insights into cloud storage. So without too much more time on this, thank you all for joining. Briefly, before I introduce this one, my name is Amar. I think you saw that blue turban photo. I am the CEO of Cyber Management Alliance, and this one's slightly younger than me, but he's the CEO and founder of Tresorit. And as you can see on the screen here, under 30s, Forbes award winner and entrepreneur of the year. Istvan, over to you, sir. Tell me and tell the audience, and more importantly, a little bit of background as to why you started Tresorit. It's not called Tresor IT, everybody. It's called Tresorit, as in encrypt it. So Tresorit. So Istvan, over to you, sir.
Thank you, and welcome everybody this afternoon, or morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. So my background, I was trained as a cryptography engineer. Was learning how to design encrypted things, softwares and systems which can hide information. And then during these studies, I was thinking, okay, why people are handing over their data to the cloud, to a third party, without even questioning how the data is secured there. So then I started looking into the area of end-to-end encryption and started a research. And then later on, with a few of the people I was doing this research, we founded a company, which later on became Tresorit, and the service what we are providing right now.
Excellent. I know that's a bit brief, but Istvan, thank you. To set the record straight, we personally, in terms of Cyber Management Alliance, actually use Tresorit ourselves. So we don't normally do every product, obviously, but we like it so much we actually we use Tresorit to store sensitive data and to share sensitive data. But we'll come to more about Tresorit. That's a bit later. But more importantly, the focus of today is education. And as this one has said, encryption is his background. And this one, if you don't mind, but without getting too technical, if we can always take technical questions if any audience has a particular request. But a little bit of the challenge. If I may give you a little bit of my challenge, because in terms of Cyber Management Alliance talks to many customers and clients, they are concerned about privacy, many of them, which is a good news, but they're confused about the cloud, and that's what the blog is about also, actually. and many people are in the cloud in some form or the other, but they are confused. They're not sure how to proceed. What is a good vendor? What's a good solution? So the focus of today is cloud storage and sharing. So I guess from your point of view, and obviously you have started, a company to tackle this problem. If you take us 1 or 2 minutes in technical and non-technical example, why are these two topics here very important to consider?
Yeah, I think the end-to-end encryption, which is sometimes used for chat as a concept, is a central part of what we wanted to achieve in the beginning. That means that files are encrypted on the local computer with keys generated by that computer. And conceptually, basically what it makes that you are by outsourcing, by uploading that file to the cloud, you're not revealing any information to the cloud provider. And it is important that the system needs to be designed in a way that at no point the cloud provider can get access to the information. And in that case, we're talking about end-to-end encryption. And so that's a conceptual thing. But this concept actually, why is it good? Because at the end of the day, if you're sharing only with your colleagues, and it's basically go to the cloud, comes back, it is stored in a safe place, so it's a monitored a data center. But virtually, you are getting the same secrecy as keeping everything in-house on premise. So that's a very important part of that. Zero knowledge. Go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
So zero knowledge is somewhat attached, but it's used originally used in authentication, but zero knowledge can be broadened out to other areas, which is generalization what end-to-end encryption provides. That there is no access for the information or to the information itself and the keys and encryption keys. So the admins who are running the clouds or employees or the other people who are working on those machines cannot get access to that information, even if they wanted to.
Excellent. So just to clarify, when someone is looking at their provider, right? Say they are with somebody else today. What do they need to ask? Because let's be honest, and this is not painting everyone with the same brush, but if I phoned up a vendor today and said, "Are you doing end-to-end encryption?" They'll say, "Yeah, we're doing, buddy. Don't worry, we are." Nobody is going to say that they're not doing end-to-end encryption. What is the good way to assess?
I don't think everyone is. So they would say they are doing end-to-end encryption. They would claim they are doing encryption, and they would just say that, "Oh, we are doing. Don't worry, we do encryption." And in the next slides, I can explain what's the difference. What is the fundamental difference between end-to-end encryption and other encryptions? What usually most of the cloud providers mean.
Okay,
so
we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. And folks, just so if you're listening in, obviously, zero knowledge, a simple way to explain that is nobody else should have access and be able to unauthorized access to your data. That's one way to look at it. So we'll go to the next slide, Istvan. So this is over to you. What are we seeing here?
So what here I would like to explain with this simple diagram what happens in case of end-to-end encryption, how the data flows. So for instance, Alice would like to upload something to the server, and how is it stored on the physical disks at the end of the day. That's what we'll see. So the first step, Alice encrypts the information with a key generated on her own computer. And that information is encrypted to the server, and that server stores as it is received. The server cannot decrypt the information and doesn't do anything with it. So that, what happens if there is the hacker goes and hacks this server, there is a data leakage, for instance, or rogue employee get in. There is no problem because what is you can see there as encrypted information, and there is no key for to that encrypted file. The tricky question here then, how that information got to another person, for instance, Bob, and once it's downloaded from the server, and again, on the server, on the cloud provider, you don't have the keys. So Bob needs to get the keys from Alice, and that key management needs to happen in the background in order to Bob be able to decrypt the information on his computer. So that is basically the end-to-end encryption, so that it travels through, in case of cloud storage, it travels through a cloud provider, a server, but the provider, the cloud provider cannot get access, and there is no way to get access to the unencrypted information.
I have a question here. It's a good question from the audience. What if someone does not manage their keys or they forget their password? Is it pretty much over? Do they lose their data?
Yes. So that that is a very big drawback. If you lose your keys, then you lose your information. However, I need to, what we are doing, that we are using a password stretching algorithm and encrypting those keys. So your keychain is actually encrypted and is also uploaded to your server. But that's keychain. So for that you need a password, your password. But if you lose your password or forget your password, then it's gone. But it guarantees that you can log in from another computer just using a simple password. Yeah. So that you can have multiple computers. You don't need to worry about transferring these keys. And even if you lose your computer, if you remember that password, that is something you can get back. But if you completely forget, and for a simple user, that means the only thing we can do is just deleting the data. There is no way or admins can recover it.
I have to admit, Istvan, in the past, in fact, with Tresorit myself, I didn't store my password in my password manager, and I lost the password. So I had no choice. I mean, I think I remember asking you, and you said, "Sorry, Amar, there was simply no choice but to lose that data." So end-to-end encryption is very important, folks. Very good. But then please make sure you do manage. Don't write down the password, obviously, but do manage the password and store it safely so that you can then access your data.
Yes, it is important. One thing during the years we found that companies are facing with these issues. So we created for companies, especially for larger companies, something called advanced control, when the company admin can revert. So there is a sharing key. The key chain basically is shared with the company admin, with the same way as Bob and Alice is sharing a file. Still, we cannot get access, but the admin can access the keychain, so the admin can recover the company admin can recover the password,
Okay.
but no one else.
I'll come to that. That's a very important point. But I know there is you have a trick up your sleeve around how that is managed, correct? So
Yes.
we'll talk about that. What is channel encryption? Over to you again. What exactly is channel encryption?
So you asked just a few minutes earlier that when you ask someone, the cloud provider, if they're doing end-to-end encryption, most probably they will say that yeah, we do channel encryption and we are doing at-rest encryption or in-motion encryption. What happens, and that's the important thing, the same setup. Alice would like to upload a file to the server, and the server stores it on the disk. But what happens, the channel encryption means that there is an encrypted channel between the server and you. But after the information gets out from the channel, it's decrypted. So a hacker can get access, or a rogue employee can get access once it's on the server. So when it arrives, the key is shared between you and the server, which is a protection if you're doing a public Wi-Fi, that's uploading so that no one can monitor that. But the server itself, if there is a vulnerability and someone gets in, then the hacker can get access to the information. And on top of that, they may claim that they're using at-rest encryption, and don't worry, because we are encrypting on our servers. That basically means that in the memory, with a key only managed by them, by the cloud provider, they're encrypting the file before it's storing to the disk. But actually, it's a transference encryption most of the cases. So that means someone get into the system, will able to through this transference encryption, will able to get access to the key, and through that actually the encrypted content as well. So that's the problem is, even if it's encrypted on the way up, so in the channel or at the disk, still there is a point where the files are decrypted, the data is decrypted, and that point hacker can gain access to that.
Excellent. So going back to this important question again, where someone asked earlier, if someone has an existing service provider, which many people are using cloud storage, how do they ask them, are you using channel encryption, or what's the right question to ask to get the right answer?
Specifically end-to-end encryption. So I think they specifically need to ask about whether they have beyond at-rest and channel encryption. Beyond that, there is an end-to-end encryption. And I don't think people are having, and then also what I would ask, okay, where is my key? Where is the key managed? So who gets access to the key, and who generates the key? Is it my computer? Is it your computer as a cloud provider? Is it? And so where is it stored? The other question I could raise, where the encryption process takes place, because in some cases the keys are managed by you, but the encryption is processed. So the encryption process is done on the server side. So, and then we'll come to that. There's more categorization for that, and it's gives additional secrecy, but not the ultimate secrecy what end-to-end encryption can give, which is you can store it openly without any protection of the server, because even if anyone get access, with strong encryption, and I'm talking about really strong AES-256, that is that guarantee that no one will able to see what's there.
Very interesting. That's very useful. A couple of questions. We've answered one question, which is which password manager. Istvan, you can answer that, but we at Cyber Management Alliance, we use 1Password from Agile Bits. Do you have anyone that you use?
I use KeePass and storing in Tresorit, and also LastPass for web-based. But it's 1Password is also something I heard good things about.
So KeePass, LastPass, 1Pass is what I use personally. I have been using for very long. I like it, but that's do your due diligence, right? And make sure you remember the key to the vault. Password managers have one big problem. Everything is in one place.
Yes.
One or two people have reached out saying, please, would you share the presentation? Yes, Henry, you've given your name. Henry, I will share the presentation later. And there are one more question. We'll come back to that later. Okay, Istvan, this has been very useful up till now. So channel encryption, if I may put it in another way, is vendors storing the data in clear. Is that another way to put it?
Yes, and in a way that even if there is an at-rest encryption, because it happens, the key management and the encryption process happens, under the control of the same provider, then it's basically almost like storing it clear text. So it doesn't really give much to that. It's basically like disk encryption. When it's quite useful for your laptop, because if you lose it, then someone getting a physical access to your laptop doesn't have access to your information. But for a cloud provider, I mean, they're having physical access there. It's locked down area, so it's sometimes whether you trust that cloud provider if they will get access to that or not. And if you don't want to place that trust into the cloud provider, then at-rest encryption, even if it's combined with channel encryption, is not enough.
Sorry, come again. I missed that a little bit. What's not enough?
Channel encryption with at-rest encryption. So if you don't want to trust the cloud provider, that they will not do, their employees won't do, so that if you don't trust them, then that will not be a solution.
I understand. And I think, I hope you agree, and I know you agree, but I hope everyone listening in also agrees. The most correct and secure way is basically do not trust the cloud provider. He or she may be your best friend. Istvan and I are good friends. We know each other. We've spoken a few times. But and as Istvan is saying, do not trust the network, the provider, except for yourself, especially if you have sensitive data, that is maybe GDPR, specific personal information, or any other sensitive data that you do not want others to see. So please do keep that in mind when you are looking at your current provider or your future provider if you're about to select a new one. Do they know about encryption? What I like about Istvan from Tresorit is the young man is basically breathing encryption. I mean, as you were saying, Istvan, you were doing encryption before you started Tresorit. Now that you don't find every day. So I just want to kind of, it's quite important especially in technology such as encryption, that the company you are dealing with understands the topic and is what we call subject matter expert. So, you can reach out to Istvan yourself, anyone listening in, and challenge him on encryption topics. I'm sure he will be happy to respond and challenge you back.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. Now, this is quite interesting. The source is in the PowerPoint, Sky High Cloud Security for 2017. By the way, Happy New Year to everyone listening in. This is still January 2019. Encryption controls vary widely. but are we saying 9% are encrypting data at rest? That is a very shocking and low figure.
And so we discussed that even encryption in transit, or the synonym for that is the channel encryption. So encryption in transit and channel encryption is the same in this particular scenario. What we are talking about, 81 or 82% is using it. Basically, we are talking about the SSL or HTTPS connection. That's good. That's happening, and there is a lot of efforts making it happen. And it's important because there are many cases. For instance, if you go to a public place, public Wi-Fi, and you are logging in, or your application in the background without your knowledge logging into a remote server, and that information, while it's traveling through that public Wi-Fi, is encrypted up to the cloud. But as we discussed, that from the termination of that channel, that's not encrypted. At rest, encryption is far less and still doesn't resolve the issue for the trusting in the cloud provider, but it's 9.4%, and there's 1.1% combining the client-side encryption and customer-managed encryption keys, which is more giving more control back to you as a customer how keys are managed. And we'll cover that exactly. What's the exact difference between the customer-managed encryption keys and the client-side encryption? We'll put some more light, but you can see that this is just a very small part of the entire market where the keys are managed on this way, what I described as end-to-end encryption.
So just to get this right, Istvan, 1.1% client side. Are we saying that in 2017, the report is from 2017? At that time, 1.1%, the cloud providers were letting the client, which is you or me, and manage the encryption keys.
Yes.
Wow.
So that it's still. That's why I said if you raise a question, about end-to-end encryption, they come back with an answer. Yes, we have encryption data in transit, or channel encryption, or they use another synonym, but they are not answering the question you raise. And most of the cases, people say, yeah, I hear encryption, that's good, and that's enough.
Correct.
So, but in the reality, the vast majority is still not using. And client-side encryption, I mean, it's a new phenomenon. So it is 1.1% was, I guess, I don't have the exact figures, but I guess it was like half or even less a year before that.
Wow. And then this is really sad because, and again, we're not talking about any particular vendor, but the reality is many people, the majority of people I speak to, just don't understand encryption in enough detail. For them, encryption means, gibberish characters, right?
Yeah.
And they don't go beyond that. So a lot of the times, the clients who we deal with, we offer trusted advisory to many clients. They have made the choice based on one question: do you encrypt the data? That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And that question becomes we have talked about encryption, GDPR mentions encryption, and everything is fine.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, ENISA, which is an EU agency, and getting more and more. So ENISA, they put out statements which tells that the end-to-end encryption, so that when the client is in control both for the key management and the encryption process, is the right way to store information in the cloud. So that regarding to the GDPR, that is clearly sad. So it's that other interpretation is is way, that rather it's just simple at-rest encryption is enough. And I just want to point out that, for instance, the parliaments, European parliaments, regarding to the data privacy regulation, which is, sometimes it's quoted as the cookie law, which it's actually the new version of the cookie law, because it's the regulation, the directive, what is in place right now, and regulation is still not in place. And their language, which was accepted by the Parliament, European Parliament, 2017, October, said end-to-end encryption is mandatory whenever it's possible. So there is a clear push from the EU to end-to-end encryption, and that's a logical way, because you are minimizing the risks. What you're putting so many eggs in the same basket, that you're outsourcing information to the cloud. It's so dense, and then if you don't minimize that risk, that can be catastrophic.
Very good. This is very good information. Yeah, so a quick overview of what we see here, comparison. This is a very relatively straightforward and simple comparison about what is end-to-end encryption, which is E2E, and then the regular channel encryption.
Yeah, and so that it's more like the comparison of bank accounts and the safety deposit box. So on bank accounts, it's easy because you can access it from everywhere in the world, and if you forget your password or lose your keys, you can still go into a bank account and somehow authenticate yourself and get access to your money. But in a safety deposit box, if you lose the key, there is no way that you can get access. In some banks, then you lose complete access to your safety deposit box. But at the same time, if let's say if the bank goes bankrupt, on the bank accounts, your money is gone. While in a safety deposit box, then it's still there. It's physically secured. It's there. So it's the same if in a cloud provider without end-to-end encryption is busted, it's hacked, then your data is leaked. While in end-to-end encryption, if the cloud provider is hacked, your information still stays in the deposit box.
Excellent. Just a quick reminder, folks. There's a 25% off code for the business service from Tresorit. We managed to get it from them because, we had some issues when we did the first webinar. So it was actually the Bright Talks platform's issue. But we managed to convince Tresorit to give us, or everybody who is listening into the webinar and later on, they can use the 25% code. You will get that by email. And you will also get a link to a blog about this particular topic and much more information in that blog. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Istvan. As you're saying over here, different, encryption services, AES, how can we simplify this and talk about this so that everybody understands?
Yeah, so many cases, just coming back to your original question, what to ask from the cloud provider, and their response usually, we are using AES 256. And here what I want to say that AES 256 stands for a strong encryption cipher that's a standard that is standardized and used widely and considered to be very, very strong encryption. But here, what I want to show you that even that strong algorithm, if you are not using in the right way, then you can leak information. So what you can see, the original image, it's the penguin. Then if you're not using it, it's an AES 256, but you're using an ECB mode, which is a mode with used in some cases. You don't need to be you don't need to use supercomputers to break it and see that there is a penguin in the picture. So that's the second picture. You can see that the very strong algorithm used in the wrong way. And what you want to achieve, and the third part, when you are using ES256 on the right way. So that's the just what I want to say here. Not all encryption is born to be the same, and the fact that the ES256 is in the equation is like, yeah, you are using steel metadors, but at the same time you have paper walls, so that you can. So it is not a guarantee. But itself is important to see what encryption algorithms are being used by the cloud provider. That's but it's not enough. And
very good. Very good.
And maybe we can jump to the next slide where this I try to summarize what we started and introduced earlier. Yes, so that the cloud encryption and key management, and you manage the key and the cloud provider. So that's let's in this summary. We looked at the markets and try to put some examples on the markets who are doing this architecture. And what architecture means that on the Y, or the rows are, for instance, where the encryption is happening. So where the process is happening. It happens in the cloud, so that the information you send a clear text, unencrypted information to the cloud, and then the cloud encrypts it. The encryption happens there under the control. It can happen on-premise, meaning that is under your control inside your network somewhere. So there is a server or gateway or something, or the client device, so that the end device can do that. That's the encryption process, where you're transforming an unencrypted file to an encrypted file. On the as we're looking at the columns, the key management, you can see where the key manage that. So when you do such of an encryption process, you need to you have two inputs: the clear text and the key. And the clouds, in case that the provider is managing the key, is accessing the key and storing the key. So in most cases, you don't even have. And there is a key management, the on-premise key management, meaning that you have a server, you can put it in your network, and that is communicating with the clouds, and that is giving the clouds and the keys, or the party who's doing the encryption process. And then you have the client device when the encryption key is managed by the end device. So what we were talking about, the at-rest encryption, there are many companies who are doing that, Dropbox, Sukasa, whatsoever. And it's what they are doing, that they are doing the encryption on their side, as you remember the animation. So when it was stored in the disk, they are running the encryption process. They are transforming the clear text to ciphertext, but they are also managing the key. So that's the one of the encryption. And there is a stronger architecture, the at-rest and HSM, or client managed keys. In that scenario, for instance, Box have that, Box ETM, Enterprise Key Management, that you can have HSM. It's a hardware security module. That's a special hardware where keys are stored in a way that you cannot be exported. But that hardware is quite expensive. Starts from 10,000 and scales up to a lot.
Right.
What is happening that Box is doing the encryption for you, so that when your employees is uploading a file, they're doing the encryption, but the key is actually managed by you. So it gets back to your network, the keys. So if you want to turn off, access to Box, then you can just not giving them any more keys. But you need to trust whether Box, during this process, the encryption process, did not save the clear text file, or no one hacked Box during that process and saved all the files.
Makes sense. And this is, I guess what I would recommend people listening in is come back and listen to this. It's a very important concept to understand. Not all encryption is equal. And it's important to understand that simply saying, oh, it's encrypted doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
Or you need to decide, because the more things you encrypt, the more complex the system gets. You may, for instance, give up on different features. For instance, Box have systems with just a simple at-rest encryption. Most of the people are using that. In that case, you have, for instance, previews even for cat files. But once it's this at-rest plus HSM, they cannot guarantee this preview, so you actually lose the functionality of previews if you are using ETL. So that there are certain features you lose.
So just to bring up something, and you mentioned it on this slide, it says no transformation, no thumbnail. Now, I know some people might be wondering what that means. Can you expand a little bit on that, what that means?
Sure. So when you are doing end-to-end encryption, there is no, you don't get access as a cloud provider to the file. While, for instance, if you are uploading like a picture, a gallery, your family pictures to the cloud provider, and you want to look at those pictures on your phone and through mobile network, you don't want to download all the pictures, but you want to browse, the little pictures, and that's called thumbnails, and you don't want to download all that multiple megabytes picture. You want to download just a small, very small thing, and that resize is done by the server side. They're doing JPEG resizing, and then automatically, and they are storing the smaller picture on their server.
So basically they are reading your data in clear text or in clear image. Yes,
I mean that's how you can resize that. That's an automatic thing, but I mean someone could change that to JPEG resize library to something else. So what we were faced as an end-to-end encryption provider, a simple thing like that is hard to solve. What we did is actually we did it on the end device, so that resizing the pictures on the end device and doing the other tricks that we can provide the thumbnails, similar functionality. But that itself, just to think, that itself is getting very, very, very complicated when you are in this world, and sometimes it's not worked out. These features are not necessarily resolved by cloud providers.
Now, what's on this slide, very briefly, if you don't mind, just take 30 seconds. Complex search algorithm, and you are saying you have worked it out. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's we haven't released it. It's what we started doing researches into areas called fully homomorphic encryption, and that's a well, it's not quite new, but it was 2009 when a guy called Gentry, working as a PhD at IBM in Zurich, said the impossible is possible. Basically, what happens is the encrypted information can be processed on the cloud side on a remote computer without decrypting at any time, so that you can change the algorithm, for instance, the search algorithm, on a way that that will come up with a solution, but it's actually the encrypted solution. And that was for a long time. It's a mathematical problem, but for a long time it was considered to be impossible. Just they were waiting for the mathematical proof, and this guy came up with the opposite. He showed a way, but it's a very impractical way how to do that. And in general, it's still extremely complex, fully homomorphic encryption, and takes a lot of computation to do that. So it's much more computation. So what can be done, a computation on your computer for 1 second, it takes like 5 hours in the cloud.
That is very exciting. So what we are saying, folks listening in, and obviously there are no promises here, but what we are saying is we can securely index and search encrypted data without decrypting it.
Yes, and that's a specific use case which can be done practically, and we were developing such technologies, that in this environment, how providing the same thing, providing the same functionality, but without getting access to the clear text information.
Very exciting, sir. So this is obviously what's interesting to me is your claim that no one has succeeded. The next slide in your competition. So you still haven't given $50,000 away.
Yeah, well, it's still we need to renew and maybe increase that price.
Okay.
So what we did in 2013, what we said is, okay, guys, we give $50,000 to anyone who can hack us, and we go even further. We open up our servers so that everybody can see what we see, and still give $50,000 if any information is leaked out from there. And
no one has been able to do it.
No one was able to do that. Obviously, we didn't do that with our production servers. We created a copy for with the data of not real users, but the infrastructure was the same. The only difference was that hackers could get in easily, so that there is no firewall or anything like that. So they can download.
If anybody wants details on that, please reach out to myself or Istvan directly, and he can give you more details. We've got a couple of more questions coming in. What is the name of the encryption you were describing? Homomorphic or polymorphic? I'm trying to...
Homomorphic encryption. Fully homomorphic encryption. Fully homomorphic encryption. Because homomorphism is meaning that some computation is possible. Let's put it this way. Full homomorphism basically means that that you can do everything what you can do in a normal computer, so that all algorithms can be transformed to that.
Excellent. That's a good question. Thank you. Someone was saying, read the vendor names. Logos are too small. So some of them are Sukasa, VaultLife, Box, Salesforce, Encryption. We have Tresorit.
Maybe I go through. Maybe I go through real quick.
Okay, real quick. Go on.
In categories. So the at-trust and HSM category, there is HP, the security service of them, Voltive, Salesforce, Box, IKEA. And the session-based encryption, where basically the encryption happens on the client or the cloud side, but you are managing, your end device is managing the keys. the Spideroak, Bitcasa, Cubby, which was shut down later on. That was both of Bitcasa and Cubby is not working now. There is an on-premise, so that on-premise encryption. That so that in your network is happening with encryption, and the key management is in your network. Is one is the CASB encryption gateway. That's a good example for that. And CipherCloud. That's one. And Ionic. And there are other providers doing this CASB encryption, which is basically a gateway, an encryption gateway. So before it goes to the cloud, the information is encrypted by this special gateway placed into your network. But if you want to access the information outside of your office, then you are in trouble because it's encrypted, or you can use VPN. And then DRM, it's basically encrypted on your phone, on your device, but the key management can be done in the cloud. You can also have on-premise key management, so that's Exchange is there, the on-premise key management, client device encryption. And then the client-side encryption category, we're talking about like Vivo and Tresorit and Boxcryptor. Those are the names of the vendors there.
Yeah. Excellent. So a couple of things. I know we're running out of time. The interest is quite high. I mean, we could possibly hold another session on the details of encryption. So we've got this trade-off. We've discussed, privacy. I think we touched on it a little bit. If you can briefly touch on this, and then we've got 2 or 3 more slides to discuss.
Sure. What is or hard is basically an enterprise-grade secrecy with consumer-grade simplicity, and that's the key thing. What I try to describe, that even though that it sounds quite complex, end-to-end encryption, at the same time we're proud that we're simple to use service, and that people are liking it as much. For instance, on Android, Google Drive has the same rating, so that like we have. So that's I think it's a good achievement in terms of usability. It's a much we have a less smaller user base, but still this user base is liking what they're having. And what we are go ahead.
No, sorry. I'll just move to the next slide about, the way, like I said, this for everyone, we use Tresorit, we like it. And as it says, it's actually relatively straightforward to use.
I'm happy that you like it, and hopefully that some people listening in to find it useful for them. And what I wanted to highlight here is that it's not just about encryption. So when it comes to usability and in real life, mobility and cross-platforms, to be able to access information from all platforms is important. Also, it's important that to set up policies. For instance, people cannot access information outside of your office, or they need to set up 2-factor authentication. That is there, and the whole thing can be used as a backup tool, so that if there's you get another WannaCry, then it's safe with us because it's stored. Every version of the file is stored in our cloud. Even if it's deleted, you can recover it. So it's good way and good practice to store every important file as is and synchronize it with Tresorit, because then you can minimize data loss.
Okay, I think for some reason, again, BrightTalk's not letting me. I'm not sure if the audience can see the next slide, but on our BrightTalk back end, it's managed. Oops. Okay, there you go. I mean, normally, personally, I don't recommend and clients to only base their decision on certificates, but it's always good to know that you've gone through, you've got ISO, you've done a lot of due diligence. And for those listening in, to me, what's really important, Istvan, if I'm being very upfront and honest, is where you can speak to the founder, for example, in your case, and ask the question straight on, right? It's very important to get a feel of what the company culture to privacy is, because everybody can get all the different certifications and keep, putting it on their website. It's brilliant, but to me, what's very important is, have you met the company? Have you met the founders? What is their culture on security and privacy? So it's good to see this. It's one, but I think for me, like I said, what I seal the deal for us is, and our point is, we've spoken, we've met, and we've kind of understood your passion about privacy.
We are. I mean, it's. I think privacy is the biggest issue in 21st century. One of the biggest issues, and we need to do something about it. And it's a very small part and some encryption, but I'm happy to contribute with that to protecting more privacy.
Excellent. A good question has come in. A couple of things, folks. Do leave us feedback and let us know how we can improve. If you liked it, obviously, you can always get in touch with info@cm-alliance.com. You will get the code and a link after this. The question is, what do you use to guarantee availability, reliability, etc.? You can see the question. And have you thought of implement a distributed storage infrastructure to further secure data so no one location has readable data? They're good questions, but we are running out of time. Istvan, can you give a short and simple answer to this?
Yes. My thesis, which was the original part, what the Tresorit became, that was the sort of basis of Tresorit. So my thesis, I was more working with the distributed networks and distributed storage in general. We started with clouds and cloud provider, which is in a way it's a distributed storage, and the underlying system is a distributed storage as well. We are looking into that, but at the same time, at this stage, distributed storage is not that reliable yet. So we want to provide reliability, SLAs, and still good improvements out there, and we are monitoring, and we are thinking even combining, the cloud storage with distributed networks to have both the best of both worlds. So we are actively looking into this area. And again, where we are coming from is more of the distributed networks or the.
Okay. I want to thank everybody in the audience for your time. And Istvan, thank you so much for sharing. And if you have any further questions for Istvan or us, you can reach us and connect with Istvan. But for now, thank you, everybody. And we will speak to you very soon, again, on a different webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.